And welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. When it comes to the best building materials for your new home, your renovation project, or your small do-it-yourself project, A.G. Hines Company has what you need. The latest in materials and tools, plus more than 100 years of expertise, knowledge that they can share with you. They are a special company. So many of my companies are locally owned, family owned, and this is one that's 4 generations. That's pretty impressive. A.G. Hines Company. Check them out in downtown Knoxville. Visit them online or call them right there this week. Okay, let's take a look at what Tennessee has done so far. They are now 9-4 overall. The blue games are losses, of course. The home and road thing's a little different this year since most people don't have a crowd. Usually you look at it and say, okay, well, you split with Missouri and you expect to lose some on the road like at Florida, but it really doesn't apply this year with the attendance being so bizarre. But when you look at that, you can kind of take out Appy State, Tennessee Tech, St. Joseph's, and USC Upstate. Everybody else, Colorado, Cincinnati, Kansas, and all the SEC teams are top 150 by Ken Pomeroy's rankings. They're in a third-place tie in the SEC. They're a half game behind Missouri. Alabama has kind of run away with it at the moment, although they lost to Missouri this week. Has Tennessee been consistent? Not really, but good luck finding teams that are consistent in college basketball. I looked last night. 7 of the top 15 teams in the NCAA's net ratings have 4 or more losses. That's 7 of the top 15 already have 4 or more losses like Tennessee. So you're not alone in terms of kind of being up and down. That's sort of what the sport is. But my question is, when you look at what they've done, should there be as much angst amongst the fans as there has been? And let me tell you, the angst meter was going high about halftime last night. If you lose, and we talked about it last Sunday on the show, Mark, you were at the YP board. I said, is this one of these weeks where you beat Kansas and then turn around and say, how did we lose to Ole Miss and Kentucky?
Yeah.
Got part of that. Is there too much wringing of the hands about this team at this point in the season? Or is it about right? We expected a little bit more from this team, and they aren't delivering. Where are you with what your expectations were and where this team is?
Well, I think we expected a little bit more because of, I mentioned it earlier, the struggles of John Fulkerson. Your senior players with Pons and Fulkerson. Are you the team that scored 80 against Kansas? Or are you the team that went to Ole Miss and scored 50, the team that went to Florida and scored 49? So I think it's reasonable to expect you've let a couple of games get away. But remember, to me, it's still all about playing your best basketball in March. And Tennessee, I think, is on their way back to doing that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what Chuck said. I just think, you look around at college basketball, like no one's consistent. Right. It's like, early
you got Gonzaga.
Yeah, exactly.
Baylor.
Earlier in the season, you're looking at, okay, you got Baylor and Gonzaga. Who's the next best team? And people look around, is it Tennessee?
Drake.
Yeah, it's like, is Tennessee in the mix there? Tennessee's probably not the third best team in the country, but there's a chunk of like 15 teams right below them. Yeah. And Tennessee's absolutely in there. And, outside of Baylor and Gonzaga, if this Tennessee team, made it to the Final Four, I don't think people would be floored. If this team got knocked out in the second round, I don't think they'd be floored because they're really great and they're really flawed like a bunch of other teams.
See, and I think that's the problem. Especially, maybe this is the problem everywhere, but especially the problem around here. Once you say the words together, Final Four, that becomes the expectation. That is what
but you've never been there.
If you can be there, then you should be there.
Yeah.
When the reality is there are a lot of Loyola Chicago getting the right breaks can get to George Mason can get to the Final Four. Does this team have it in them to get to a Final Four? I think so. But the problem is so many people looked at it and said, okay, we'll win the SEC, and they're talking Final Four, so that means we'll be in the Final Four. I think that was getting a little ahead of themselves.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the expectation of the Final Four. I think when you look at it globally about
goal or expectation?
Goal and expectation.
Well, I would argue that.
You can have, with a team coming into a season, you can have an expectation, but it doesn't mean that if you don't get there that it's a complete loss because of how college basketball is. That's not how a fan looks at it, because a fan looks at it just at your team, your season, your schedule, as opposed to, because right now you're going to have an unranked Duke, unranked North Carolina, unranked Michigan State, unranked Kansas, and maybe unranked UCLA and an unranked Kentucky of blue bloods. So it happens to the best of them. So it's my thing about it, the frustration at times with this team is because it's how they've lost. Their calling card has been, we don't turn it over, we play great defense, we're tough. You look at the games that we lost against Florida, turned the basketball over, got out tough. Missouri, turned the basketball over, got out tough. So the games that we've lost are not the way that we're accustomed to Rick Barnes' teams losing, and that's where the frustration lies at times with me.
Yeah, when you say the expectation is Final Four, I just know the way that's viewed in fan world and a lot of media world is you failed to hit expectations. You're a bum.
Yeah,
You're a
coaches
loser.
hate it. Coaches hate it.
Yeah, I would never say unless I had a team that has more talent than anybody in the country, I would never say the
How
expectation
realistic is an
Four.
expectation to achieve something you've never done before?
But
That's a
that's
goal.
But that's also why you can be frustrated at that Ole Miss loss, because if you look at that roster and you talk about talent, so you're commenting about the talent to the Final Four. That's the frustration, because that Ole Miss, they are not as talented as that Tennessee basketball team, and we lost that game.
Yeah,
But that's going to happen in college basketball, right? It happens.
that's the difference.
Right, exactly.
There's the reality, and then there's the how everyone views the reality.
Right.
I mean, you can go back. I was talking to somebody last night, and the Tennessee team that went to the Elite Eight, you guys lost 9 games that year. All right? So this team, imagine this team losing 5 more games. Fans would be pulling their hair out. They'll be losing their minds. That team lost 9 games and went to the Elite Eight. So it's just, is this team where we thought they would be? No, but it's not that far off.
Right.
And you still got everything in front of you that I think you can hit. Anyway, let's take a look at what this team has done in its wins and losses. And because I was putting graphics together after midnight, instead of a headline up there, it just says headline because I forgot to write the headline. So you get a little view behind the scenes. This is what Tennessee has looked like in their victories against the top 150 teams and in their losses, 4 of them against top 150 teams. You see the field goal percentage when they win, they're shooting 45%. When they lose, 35%. Well, you're not going to beat anybody when you're shooting 35%. It's a pretty big swap there. You see what their opponents do? They shoot a little bit better, but that Tennessee in their losses just shoots ice cold. I was surprised to look up last night. Tennessee ranks 150th in the nation in field goal percentage at about 45%. That sounds horrible until you consider there are 190 schools worse than Tennessee. All right, so, and that's legitimate, that's literal. UT assists, when they win, they're at 13.8. They're down to 11 when they lose. So you see a slide there in terms of what they do in terms of assists versus their opponents and the wins and the losses. Turnovers, they turn it over a lot more in their losses, obviously, and they don't force as many turnovers in their losses. And then when you look at the turnover assist ratio, when they win, they're at plus 2.5, okay? When they lose, they're minus 4. So you're losing in the turnover and the assist ratio there. And then your defensive rebounding, when you're losing, you usually get clocked there. When we come back, we're going to send Mark Pankratz over to the Whitey board. We're going to see how he thinks on his feet, because this was supposed to be what you're going to watch against Florida. Then we changed the graphic to say what you're going to see versus Georgia. Actually, we're going to look at what you saw last night against Kentucky and what you might see moving forward. Is that correct? Is that close?
Sounds good.
He'll make it up next, coming back on the Sports Source.